Yes, we won against YouTube. This is part 2 of overanalyzing Jujutsu Kaisen. I did tell you it was originally 9 hours long. One thing to take note of is that this is a compilation of the very first Jujutsu Kaisen analysis I made. Most of these are pre-Shibuya incident or at most early Culling game. All of these are at least 4 years old, so naturally most of them might be outdated in some aspects because the manga did progress and end beyond the time they were made. But they are still decent analysis, and a lot of them don't worry about the future of set characters, let alone the ones that had their arcs complete by the time of making their videos. Also, there are theories scattered in here along with complete theory videos like how Gojo might have died or how he might have possibly become a villain. Upon rewatch, I still found them very interesting and worth watching, otherwise they would not be here in the first place. Excuse the audio quality, some of these were recorded on an iPhone 8 Plus and a $25 microphone off of AliExpress, so yeah. Also maybe put it on 1.25 speed if your brain is really rotted for the pacing. And lastly, a word from the sponsor of this video before we get in. Aoi Todo himself. Yes, Todo is the sponsor of this video because I made a Todo character analysis on Patreon. It's on the level of the Geto or Choso videos, if not better in my opinion. This is a part of the exclusive analysis I'll be doing for patrons only, so consider supporting me there to unlock these benefits in addition to director's commentaries, media recommendations, scripts, reactions, and many other things. Have fun listening to this at work or before you sleep, or just enjoy the videos in case you never saw them before. They're not public anymore on the channel, so yeah, many thanks for watching. As the embodiment of Earth and taking the shape of a volcano, representing how high and mighty he is, with fire as a primary weapon, reflecting how he is hot-tempered and always readily exploding of anger. Jogo in Jujutsu Kaisen is a disastrous cursed spirit that comes from the fear that humans have of Earth and its destructive capabilities. A curse proud enough to straightforwardly say he will kill Satoru Gojo, something that no one in their right mind can say. A task deemed as almost impossible, yet with a smug look on his face and an almost unlimited amount of confidence in his strength, he sets out and tests himself. Jogo, who many people may think of as unlucky, because as strong and capable as he is, he only fought 2 people in the entire series, and they are the strongest beings alive. That is indeed unlucky, but he brought those fights to himself, because if he listened to Kenjaku telling him not to go after Gojo in their first encounter, he wouldn't have almost died, and he willingly went to feed Yuji the fingers and brought Sukuna forth, which led to them fighting. Something I found odd is that volcanoes are usually scary because of how huge they are in size, and humans are so small compared to them and they can't do anything. Yet Jogo, who comes in the form of one, is one of the shortest characters in the series and is comparably the smallest in his group. Something I can only think of as subversion of expectations from the author, because Jogo sees himself so big and feels so confident about it, yet he in reality isn't all that. And what confirms that to me is how the author does this a lot of times in this series, and mostly with Jogo. For instance, look at how pride is characterized by having your head up and sometimes looking down on people from a higher position, as the difference between confidence and shyness usually is distinguished by the head positioning. Jogo against Gojo was too proud and even looked down on Gojo himself and thought he easily killed him twice. And their fight concluded with Gojo ripping off his head, throwing it on the ground and stepping on it, then looking down on him while he is unable to move and temporarily not even talk because of the paralysis from the domain expansion. Absolute disrespect and subversion of expectations for the character himself, seeing himself so big and powerful against others, then being humbled and put to the ground. And even after that, he had a small body because he was regenerating and regaining his strength, just as how Gojo made him realize that he is nothing compared to him, and that he isn't all that strong. He reduced his pride and sense of self. He also reduced his very physical body to a smaller one. If this is intentional, then it's some of the greatest use of symbolism I've seen. And it doesn't end there. Against Sukuna, Jogo experiences the same thing again, but now in a different way. Because after his fight against Gojo, Jogo changed. Now he doesn't go and pick fights alone meaninglessly, and he also listens and sticks to the plans made by Kenjaku, unlike before. Even though he still is very proud and full of himself, he still is haunted by the fear of Gojo, because now he knows who he is and who is superior. When meeting Sukuna for the first time, Jogo was unintentionally grabbing his neck because he was feeding Itadori the fingers, and in a way looking down on Sukuna because he was standing and Yuji was on the ground unconscious at the time. Unlike with Gojo, this was not his intention because he learned his lesson and he knows very well not to mess with Sukuna. But that doesn't stop Sukuna from cutting his hand, and when he bowed down, he cut the top of his head, telling him that he is still holding it too high. Another reminder to Jogo's character development, as of how he learned to lower his head after meeting Gojo, but he still doesn't know his place yet. Perfectly shown when meeting the one person you shouldn't dare to raise your head in front of, the one that even breathing is questionable in his presence. The subtle use of head placement and body language in Jujutsu Kaisen is something extremely unique and creative, a way of symbolism that can be seen throughout the story that makes a character deeper in spite of the short screen time they might have, grounding them and adding more authenticity and sense of realism to them. Jogo's pride that stems from his overconfidence in his power is constantly destroyed by people stronger than him. By no means Jogo is weak. He is one of the strongest characters in the series. Just as a comparison and scaling of his power, think of Dagon, who almost killed Maki, who is extremely powerful, Nanami, who was even stronger than her at the time, and Naobito, who is stronger than that. All three of them, including the late addition of Megumi, struggled against him, even though they barely escaped with the interference of Toji. Dagon was stronger than all of them combined, and once Jogo appeared on the scene, they all stood shook because of his mere presence. And in their words, this one is on a whole other level. Jogo's strength after Shibuya is not even questionable. And what is even scarier is that he could have been stronger than this if it wasn't for his mentality. Jogo is one of those that hold themselves back from getting stronger mentally. Just like Nanami, who doesn't take irrational decisions when the task seems out of his ability. Megumi, who relies on the ace up his sleeve and focuses on cooperating and adjusting his fighting to the people around him. Jogo's pride is what held him back from becoming even stronger. When Sukuna told him that he should have burned everything in his way, cremate everyone in front of him, not hold back and not even care about others. He wasn't hungry enough to reach the heights of Satoru. Again, all stemming from his pride as a strong curse and as a curse in the first place. He sees humans as fakes. To him, they are not honest and they are contradictory. They experience all the negative emotions and lies, yet they also have positive emotions as well. To him, this doesn't make sense, and it's not the truth. Not like spirits who are pure beings that come from negative feelings alone. Jogo thinks this way because he doesn't understand it. He simply can't. But in his final moments, when Sukuna tells him that he isn't bad compared to those he fought over the years, and that he should stand proud because he is strong, he cries out of genuine relief and happiness. He feels proud in a humble way for the first time, without ego and arrogance, and he gets emotional, questioning what is happening to him and confused because of these feelings. That time, he experienced positive emotions for the first time in his life. Before that, he didn't even acknowledge them because he lacks them as a creature. Jogo's story is one of redemption in a way, a journey of knowing one's place and understanding himself. Not saying that pride is always bad and we shouldn't have it. Same with judging what we don't know. I have this way of seeing the disastrous cursed spirits as one entity, and I like to imagine them as a knight or some type of warrior. Jogo being the sword and the offense, Hanami being the shield or armor because he essentially is a guardian of nature and is the toughest out of them. Dagon being the heart, as he is the most emotional in the group and he represents identity and cares so much about it that he got angry at Nobito because he didn't call him by his name. And finally Mahito being the brain, the one that is constantly evolving. Also him being the mastermind and the leader of the group. They all feel like parts of one being. Their group is one of the most dynamic and diverse groups of antagonists we've seen recently. And just like how the 7 deadly sins from Full Metal Alchemist were all killed by something related to their sins and traits, the same thing happened in Jujutsu. Take for example Hanami, who is known for being extremely tough and durable. He was killed by Gojo and reduced to ashes. Nothing was left from him. And thematically, we can say that he, in a way, went against his character, as he was introduced as the warm guardian angel and protector of forests, but that changed into selfish desire to enjoy fights. Dagon, who represents identity and cares about it so much, was killed by the one that left his identity behind, the one that changed his name in order to escape his chains. He was unable to do anything against him anyways, but he underestimated him because he lacks cursed energy, and he was absolutely destroyed by a puppet of carnage. Mahito, who is known for manipulating and consuming other people's naivety and innocence, was manipulated, betrayed, and ironically consumed. He, the mirror of death himself, was killed by the very beings he came from. And finally Jogo, who learned to experience positive emotions, which he believed was not pure and was proud of his quote-unquote purity. died with the very same positive emotions as the last thing he feels. And his most apparent character trait, which is pride, is essentially the whole theme of his arc. And it was examined, flipped, reduced, and changed throughout the series, as he and his companions pass on and wait to be reunited 100 years from now in the wastelands. Maybe then their time will come to stand proud and pure as the beings they are, and not as danger to humans that must be eliminated. A family or a clan is a place where people can feel they belong, surrounded by people from their own blood, tied by fate as siblings and relatives, where support, pride, and honor can be felt. But just as bright that might sound and how lovely it would be for most clans to be like that, it unfortunately isn't. A clan or a family might be corrupted and toxic just as much they can be peaceful and good to be in. Whether it's political scandals, misunderstandings, discrimination, need for survival, or just pure evil, some families are truly messed up, misguided, corrupted, and in this video's case, cursed. The Zenin are a conservative clan that values power over all else, and due to that over-exaggerated worth put on power and people who have it, it gave birth to extreme expectations, oppression, and sexism. If you aren't lucky enough to be born with a powerful hereditary technique, then you are essentially worthless. You bring shame to your parents, something that is so out of your control, yet you are punished for the entirety of your life. Limited from dreams and spending your life as either a servant for females or low-level fighters that train in martial arts for males. Even when you attempt to leave, nothing but pain, regrets, and emptiness awaits you. Faced with only two options, stay and suffer or leave and also suffer. People are driven to either accept their fate and go with it, or the few minority that are able to force their way through the chains and bonds of the so-called family they are born into. Toji chose the path of isolation, cutting his ties with his blood completely, leaving the clan and leaving his kid after the loss of his wife. He essentially went on his own twisted way of revenge for what the clan did to him, becoming a mercenary who kills sorcerers. He claims and pretends to have left everything behind, yet he still acts against his normal behavior in order to prove his worth, and he still has feelings for his kid, his last words being a hint to protect him, and even protecting him yet again after that. More about Toji in an individual analysis I made about him already. Make sure to check it out if you haven't, link in the description below. Not too similar yet the same is the case with Maki, who left on her own way of reclaiming respect and gaining strength. But unlike Toji, she couldn't leave everything behind. Her whole vision was about coming back and reclaiming the seat of the head, after she proves her strength and controlling the very place that she despises, in order to make a place where her sister feels she belongs. Not just her sister, but her half, Mai. The two of them are the biggest example of all the pain that the Zenin clan can inflict on people that are born weak. They suffer from all the problems and discriminations possible: abuse, sexism, bullying, shaming, disgust, and more. Being the daughters of a very pure personification of the conservative and the abusive methods and ideals of the clan, from valuing power and control above all else, even his own blood, just goes to show that Maki and Mai aren't the only ones who probably suffer like this, that this is a shared mentality running through their blood, a curse that separates and causes corruption and blindness, as their mother who is a servant listening to her daughters being objectified and disrespected. Yet she can't do or say anything against it. She is powerless against this system of twisted traditions, as she is told that a woman that can't walk 3 steps behind a man should be stabbed in the back and killed. And from the very few male characters we know of, this isn't rare. Almost every male character from the clan we got to see enough of shows signs of this corruption and sexism, other than Ranta, who looks like the only pure and good out of them. He seems like a product of traditions that just follows orders, not being like others, or so I'd like to think, because we didn't get to know him more, and he has only few lines, as he only appeared in 1 chapter. But going from his appearance and what little we saw of him, we can tell he isn't rotten, like Jinichi Nobuaki, Oji, and lastly the pure idealistic manifestation of everything that the Zenin clan is, Naoya Zenin. Naoya represents everything that the Zenin are. He is full of himself, disrespectful, cunning, and abusive. He is the result of the opposite end of the spectrum in the clan. Unlike Maki, Mai, and Toji, who are the outcasts, he is the pride. He is what happens when someone meets those expectations, inheriting the technique of his father, the previous head, and being the most likely to take his place. His outfit and his Kansai accent are also reflections of the traditions and conservative ways of the clan. When he realizes that the seat of the head is going to be taken away from him by Megumi due to a certain contract his father had with Toji, he becomes frustrated and immediately sets out to kill him. Kill someone he doesn't know for the sake of himself, showing how little value he sees in human lives aside from his. The way he learns that his father passed away, yet he only cared about the news that had something to do with him. The way he looked down on Maki and bullied her as a kid. He is the Zenin clan at its purest. When Gojo was sealed, Naobito, the previous head, only showed interest in how it will make the Gojo clan weaker, which benefits them. Didn't care about how that will literally affect the whole world. They are a clan of interest, and they ended up being the one taken down from the seat of the big 3 clans, or at least what the other clans demanded, after a certain monster destroyed them completely. And that monster is none other than their creation. Just as Naoya is the epitome of the pride of the clan, Maki is the opposite. She is the unwanted, the disappointment, and that soon leads to her becoming more powerful. Just like Toji, the removal of all cursed energy she had granted her immeasurable power. She went and killed all present members of the clan, small and big. No one stood a chance as she single-handedly annihilated them. Killed all members of the Hei squad, and all that was left for her to destroy was their leader Naoya himself. A final clash between the top of the clan and the bottom of it. The pride versus the shame. This is the climax of the clan's survival. Is it going to be destroyed completely, or is there still hope of revival? As they fight, Naoya not giving Maki any chance to react or move, overwhelming her with his speed, going all out because he learned from his encounter with Choso not to underestimate people. At first he seems to have the upper hand, but then Maki surprises him with a counter punch, because she was counting his movement and breaking down his technique, which enables him to make 24 movements per second. She one-shots him and leaves him to die. Naoya had all his beliefs shattered. Against Choso, his take on brotherhood and family was disproved. The one person who doesn't care about family versus the one who only cares about family. He was looked down on by Yuta, Even with the power he is so proud of, he was powerless against someone much more powerful than he is, relying on him to treat his wounds. Even as a kid, he was excited to see the loser that is called Toji, when he heard so much about him and came to see how miserable and weak he must be. Only to his surprise, he sees the Chad that Toji is. From then, he idealized him and Toji became his hero. The same thing kept happening to him until his final fight against Maki, someone who is exactly like Toji. But she is a female, and he learned that she can't stand equal to him. She is worthless. A throwback to something that Nobara said in chapter 42, when Yuji asked her why doesn't the clan just accept Maki because she is strong. She told him that they don't want to accept something they already rejected. They are stupid that way. And that is exactly what happened with Naoya. If he likes and respects Toji so much, then why not accept Maki, who is the same now? When he was barely able to survive after that, he was killed by Maki's mother, as she walked behind him and stabbed him in the back. A throwback to how he told her that any woman who can't follow a man should be stabbed in the back. Irony at its finest. Maki and Mai's mother seems heartless at first, but sooner we realize that she also was just like them. She was powerless and she suffered her entire life, longer than they did. She just accepted it as reality, but after all she still loved her daughters and was glad that she gave birth to them, and their foolish father Oji, who was the victim of Maki's rage. In fact, the first one to be cut by her new blade, by the very daughters he called a stain in his life. I believe Naoya will come back as a vengeful cursed spirit, because he still has more to serve in the story and he was killed by a non-cursed object. Until then, the state of the Zenin clan is vague. Maki can't be the leader because there is no one to lead, and she only wanted that for Mai, and Mai died. Fushiguro is the current head of the clan, but that is not as simple as it sounds. What is clear now is that the clan was destroyed because of a sister's promise, and it's fair to say that they destroyed themselves. Literally because Maki was one of them who did it, and thematically because of everything I mentioned in this video.
望んで手に入れた力じゃない。呪術を差し出し、肉体が戻るのであれば喜んでそうするさ。俺はな、俺を差し置いて、樹海のお前がのうのうと日の元を歩いているのが、どうしようもなく我慢な。
Having to live your entire life under a rooftop, from the protection of not only sunlight, but even moonlight can hurt you. Being born with no feeling in the bottom part of your body, no right arm and not even a proper skin. As someone like Toji and Maki may have benefit from the power given to them in exchange of their cursed energy and have supernaturally strong bodies, the opposite may happen. Being born with immense amount of cursed energy in the exchange of a normal healthy human body. Not a fair trade because of the lack of choice or acceptance. Something in normal circumstances you can't do anything about, especially when the power that is gained doesn't make up for the mental and social issues that will come along the way. The inability to connect with people and the inexperience of life. This is the curse of power when unwanted, the curse of being forced to endure something unfair, the curse of fate. Kokichi Muta, also known as Mekamaru, is a Jujutsu sorcerer from Kyoto, who was born with a heavenly restriction that treated his physical body with cursed energy and a powerful technique that makes him by far the strongest student from the Kyoto school when it comes to raw power and amount of cursed energy. Alongside his powerful and long-range technique and his intelligence, he is extremely talented and has a lot of potential, being a semi-first grade sorcerer while he is only in his second year. Kokichi, though, doesn't want any of this and is ready to throw it all away in exchange for a normal body. As ironically as him having huge amounts of cursed energy already, the resentment and hatred he has reflects that. Hatred towards the world, hatred towards the very laws of Jujutsu and the system, and even hatred towards others that get to have what he doesn't. And that is where his biggest flaw lies, his inability to connect with and relate to others. As self-explanatory as it is for someone who lived his entire life isolated from others, physically and emotionally, Kokichi doesn't understand bonds, trust, and relations. That is why he was aggressive towards Panda for the fact that the latter thought they were the same, and the fact that Panda get to live the way he can't. That is also the reason he faked the information and assignments for his Kyoto classmates, so that they don't get sent to Tokyo to experience the events of Shibuya. He only wanted to protect them. His misunderstanding to being a team led him to push them away instead of working together and relying on them. Kokichi made a deal with Kenjaku and Mahito that for exchange of all the information they want from the headquarters and being updated on what is going on, they will heal his body. And the pact they did even included them not laying a finger on his fellow classmates, which was broken after Hanami fought the students. He is on the surface a traitor, but his intentions to protect his friends and the situation he is in makes it only natural that he will, but more like he should do it, especially because of the fact that he didn't want to cooperate with the enemy and making perfect plans to minimize the damage for his classmates. He even was planning to contact Gojo to inform him about the events of Shibuya.
メカ丸もいろいろ大変なんだろう。でも大変なやつが正しいとは限んねえよ。
メカ丸、大技を無駄打ちするな。敵が目の前の一体だけとは限らないぞ。
メカ丸、これ義理ですけど、チョコの代わりです。エボルタ炭酸が好きと聞きました。
俺はそういうんじゃない。
だってマイが。
メカ丸よ、女のタイプも即答できないやつが呪術師として一人前になれると思うな。
Really seen in Muta, Gojo, and most of all, Yuji. Death is not something that we can control or predict, and there is no escape in it. All there is the ability to cope with it and grow from it. Miwa herself gained a huge amount of resolve after losing Kokichi, something that was not present in her character throughout the story, as she only is a sorcerer so that she can take care of her siblings. To her, it is only a job, a way of making money. She lacked the hunger that sorcerers have to become stronger, and Kokichi's death made her realize that, feeling the regret, weakness, and uselessness. Attempting to avenge him and attacking the much superior Kenjaku, which almost killed her if it wasn't for her teacher Kusakabe stepping in. Miwa and Kokichi were not once able to meet, him only seeing her through screens and her only communicating with him through a puppet. Even in his last moment with her, Jeje brilliantly reflects him as he talks with her on the mirror of the window of the train, as if he was sitting with her, something that never happened. The glass of the screens and mirrors being the barrier that is always between them. Kokichi never wanted anyone to see him in his previous situation, and he shows signs of insecurity and disbelief that no one will accept him.
俺の姿を見た後でも手伝うなんてセリフが吐けるかな。
えルックスに関して俺がどうこう言うと思ってんのかよ。パンダだぞ。
Overall, Kokichi is a good person who went through some of the most tragic things ever imaginable. He is the most tragic character in all of Jujutsu Kaisen, as he suffered throughout his entire life from incapabilities and mental issues, inability to live a proper life, and in the end he didn't even get a proper death, but was brutally murdered by Mahito. He wasn't able to be with his friends and wasn't able to meet the one he loved in person, and no one will know about his attempt to stop King Jagu's plan, all because of the unfortunate circumstance he was born in and being the victim of a binding vow, and him trying to do everything by himself and not relying on others. Many thanks for watching.
いつかみんなと一緒に。
The Journey to the West is one of China's 4 great classical novels. It's an ancient allegory for enlightenment. Though not the main character, the first 7 chapters are dedicated to Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, a trickster-type character who made it his mission to disrupt the order of heaven. He has a huge rivalry with Buddha and is known to wield a pole that can extend its length. He is incredibly powerful, he is immortal and one of the most invincible beings in creation. And with so much similar influences Buddhism has on the story of Jujutsu Kaisen, it is very clear that Sun Wukong is represented in the story of Jeje Akutami by none other than the calamity that is Toji Zenin. It is frequently mentioned by multiple characters that non-sorcerers are monkeys, and the strongest person in the story that reached heights without using sorcery is Toji. He is the peak of human capabilities and natural strength, shown in his maxed out senses and incredible speed and power. Sun Wukong is known as the king of monkeys. Not only is Toji someone who uses tools more than anything, also something that Wukong is known for. Toji once uses the special great tool called Roaming Cloud, which brings out the most of his strength due to it not needing any cursed energy but only depending on physical strength. Sun Wukong also is known to summon a cloud that he can ride on his own, increasing his mobility, known as the Nimbus Cloud. Sun Wukong is known to have fought the Dragon King. Toji also was seen fighting a dragon in the story when he encountered Geto. But most importantly is the contrasting rivalry they both have with the enlightened one, with the one who ascended. To Wukong that was the Buddha, and to Toji that was Satoru Gojo. Toji Zenin, known later as Toji Fushiguro, was born in the Zenin Clan, an ancient conservative clan of warriors that prioritize a very specific form of strength above all else, that being power through cursed techniques. Toji was born with a heavenly restriction that completely erased his cursed energy in exchange for extreme physical and sensory prowess, as well as removing the negative side effects of cursed energy. As a result, he was shunned and expelled from the clan, which caused him a trauma as he is exiled and mocked due to not fitting in. And he developed this goal to crush the clan, going on his own way and becoming an assassin known as Sorcerer Killer. Toji developed this goal as a twisted way of finding approval for his existence. This goal is all-consuming for Toji. When he is brought back, his only thought is to go on a rampage against both sides, baring his fangs at whoever's strongest. Toji is totally sociopathic. He feels no shame nor guilt in killing Amanai, a defenseless, innocent teenager he had just heard pouring her heart out. He even grins and taunts Geto about killing his best friend afterwards. Toji is called the one who left it all behind, it being his family, his feelings and purpose. It is not false to assume that Toji is purposeless due to how twisted his goals and ways are. He is extremely insecure about himself, only wanting to prove his strength, which is where Megumi probably got his lack of confidence from. He left his son because he felt he won't be able to raise him properly, which is somewhat true. He did sell him for money, but deep down, it was for the better of his future. That he is someone that the clan can appreciate and take care of, unlike him, who thinks he can't even raise him properly without his wife. Toji is referred to as the one who threw everything away. It's revealed in his extras that after Megumi's mother died, he tried to stop caring about everything, which is why he distanced himself from his son. He often even forgets his name and never visited him. But despite this, it's made clear that while he can't admit it, he truly does love his son. His final thoughts are of him, and his last request is for Gojo to look out for him, ensuring he has a better father figure in his life. Toji, who I often call the Calamity, is literally that. Though he has so few appearances, he causes chaos whenever he is on paper. Riko's death, Geto's moral change, Gojo reaching the top, the death of Dagon and him hurting Megumi, which in result led to the summoning of Mahoraga, followed by Sukuna killing thousands of people. This all and more is caused by Toji just appearing casually and going on a rampage. He doesn't realize it, but his obsession with strength made him lose everything else. In his second fight against Gojo, he could have easily ran away because he wasn't going to get paid in that encounter. But he chose to stay and fight. His pride and resolve to prove how powerful he is by taking down the strongest there is and proving himself led to his death eventually. Gojo and Toji are opposites, always meant to oppose one another. Toji eventually became a rogue mercenary who took great pleasure in killing sorcerers to prove his family wrong about him. Gojo is someone who holds basically the entire Jujutsu world on his back and wants to raise other sorcerers to be as strong or stronger than him. Gojo is the one groomed to be superior from childhood. Toji was made to feel inferior. Gojo uses his power selflessly, almost always making himself a tool for the sake of others. Toji is someone who acted selfishly, for the sake of money, pride, issuing other people's values for his own twisted ones. However, they both have a unique understanding of one another. Toji says the first and last time anyone was aware of his presence when he visited Gojo as a kid. Gojo is defined by how untouchable he is, and the first person to ever put a scratch on him was Toji. There is actually a lot about Toji and Gojo that is similar, making them poised to understand each other. Toji is also a one-of-a-kind genius, specifically because he was born with a body that eradicates cursed energy. Toji was always powerful. He was just mocked and belittled because he didn't fit into the mold of Jujutsu society. Toji is the extreme result of Gojo's rampant individualism, in a different way than Sukuna is. Toji is strong, but his strength never really matters. He failed to protect Megumi's mother, he was going to sell Megumi to the clan. He only ends up all alone because of his decision to value strength above all else and throw everything away. Gojo is also someone who, despite being the strongest, fails to protect others. He wasn't able to save Geto from his breakdown. He failed to save Riko after that. For both characters, even though they believe the only good thing about themselves is their strength, strength is not everything to them. And that's what both of their characters' arcs are about: finding value in oneself beyond power and status. Megumi is the connecting knot that ties between them. Megumi can be everything that Toji couldn't, and while it is irresponsible that he gave away his son, deep down it was out of love. Toji's most redeeming quality was his affection for his son, and his genuine wish for Megumi to have a blessed, better life than he did. Gojo went out of his own way to protect Megumi from the Zenin family. They are both opposites in so many ways, but Megumi is their connecting thread. Both Gojo and Toji want to give him a better world and a better life than the one they grew up in. As I mentioned in my Megumi analysis video, which you should check out if you haven't, Megumi is the ideal sorcerer and person that we follow in the story of Jujutsu Kaisen. He is the center of contradictions, hopes, interests, and ideals of so many characters in the story. And through exploring him, we got more insight into what other characters see in him and wish for him, helping in understanding them as well. Toji named his son Megumi, which means blessings. Megumi is the only thing that Toji cares about. He mentioned that he decided to not respect himself or anyone else, and he chose to live like that, abandoning everything and even discarding his pride. But that was not true, because the family he left still poses a huge problem for him, desperately wanting to prove himself. He is constantly thinking about the clan and how he can show them how worthy he is, which eventually led to his death, because he warped his usual self in order to reaffirm his identity. And the son he abandoned but can't forget about, that even his last thoughts were about him, and the last words he said were informing Gojo about him in hopes he will take care of him. Toji seems to not be able to escape from his chains being the blood running through his veins. Even though he was outcasted and chose to literally leave everything, he still finds himself back where he was, bound by both love and hate to others and himself. And that was his curse. But he was blessed with a certain someone that he can at least rest assured, knowing he will be someone of worth. When Toji asked Megumi about his name, and the latter replied with Fushiguro instead of Zenin, that was the ultimate salvation for him, expressing that that's good for him, even though it goes against what he envisioned for him when he made the deal in handing him over.
使われるのの何がいけないのよ。適当に雑用をこなして適当に生きればよかったじゃない。なんで一緒に落ちぶれて。
In the Zenin household, power is everything. As twisted as it is to discriminate against people and look down on them based on something they can't control and are born with, it is not even fair in the first place, because strength here is not based on just power. It's based on power through cursed energy and techniques alone, meaning that no matter how efficient you are in other means, unless you have a powerful and worthy technique, you are nothing. You are looked down on and treated harshly, even by your own parents and siblings. You are born a failure and will stay that way. Outside of cursed energy and heavenly restrictions, this is a curse way worse and more terrifying. The curse of family, the curse of fate, and the curse of blood. Maki and Mai are born in this clan. Even though it is bad enough that they are in such environments, they were born to an inhuman pair of parents. Ogi Zenin, who is not only a powerful and well-respected figure, but also the younger brother of the previous head of the clan. He is filled with jealousy from his brother and is very resentful to his own children because they aren't powerful and worthy of having his name. And because of them, he couldn't become the head of the clan. In his own words, they are a stain in his life. Their mother, who we don't know much about, but what we've seen from her is more than enough to know that
お姉ちゃん、手離さないでよ。離さねえよ。絶対置いてかないでよ。当たり前だ。姉妹だぞ。嘘つき。
But that is not how Maki sees things. Maki is driven by a growth mindset and has a dream that she is actively working on achieving. On the surface, it appears that Maki is selfish, but sooner we found out that deep down she cares about nothing more than Mai, and that her whole reforming the Zenin idea is to create a place where Mai could live peacefully. In Jujutsu Kaisen, death is the most important theme, from how it's the protagonist's destined fate and his whole character arc is surrounding it, to how the story keeps on using it as a core theme and examine the different understandings that different characters has of it. The concept of a proper death is constantly questioned in the story, mostly by Yuji, who apparently wants to understand it. Multiple characters died in the story, but none of them died a natural and proper death. Some characters like Junpei, Kokichi, and Riko didn't die a normal or natural death. They were tragically killed, without living the life they wanted or achieve their dreams. Characters like Nanami and Yaga had a proper death because the meaning behind their lives has results. Their goals were fulfilled and their impact will live through Yuji and Panda respectively. The same thing applies to Nobara if she had actually died in Shibuya. They did live a good life and to some extent they didn't regret it, shown in how they all died with a smile on their faces. But they didn't die a normal death at all. It was unexpected and tragic, so it's incomplete. That is where Mai comes in. Mai is the first ever character in the story of Jujutsu Kaisen that died a proper and natural death. The answer to what Yuji is searching for is finally seen. Mai was long aware that Maki cannot grow while she is alive. The opposite is also true. This is just a theory, but what if Mai heard the thing about the placenta and how twins are a bad omen in Jujutsu society when she was eavesdropping on the conversation between those Zenin Clan members when she was young? She might have known for all this time about this, but chose to stay silent because a sibling dying for the sake of the other is just too tragic. But when the time came and she needed to, she selflessly sacrificed herself. It's far from being a meaningless sacrifice, because she knew that it is the only way that one of them will survive in that room. Mai was able to create a sword with the small amount of cursed energy and strength she had left, and she took away all of the cursed energy that Maki had, making her on the same level of Toji. Mai died a proper death because it was meaningful and it completes her character arc in a way, serving for Maki's growth and saving her sister. It was also natural because she wasn't killed by anyone or any curse. It was not unexpected because she chose that herself. Is this the answer Yuji is looking for? To die naturally, whether that is by a disease or old age, or to willingly sacrifice yourself for the sake of someone you love, and to have fulfilled your goal and lived your life without regrets? Only the story will tell us. Maki now is a whole different person. She is technically now complete that her sister is gone, but she feels empty. This is not a thing that she would have wished for, because unlike the other clan members, power is not everything for her, especially that this same ideology is what caused them all of this in the first place. In a genius and symbolic way, Maki is now holding her sword that I assume she's calling Mai by her hand and will never let it go. That is what Mai wanted after all, to stay by the side of her sister forever. And Maki is going to destroy everything, because that was her sister's last words, and it was the promise she made for her. But now, unlike before, she will not break that promise again. The thought of becoming the head of the clan seems far away now, especially if there is no clan to become the head of in the first place. She is going to destroy everything, just like how Gojo could have done, but instead he chose to rebuild. Maki already started destroying, and she is unstoppable. Not even the elites of the clan were able to slow her down. The future of the Zenin Clan is still vague, just like the story of the world of Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole. But at least Maki and Mai are now liberated, as complex and weird as it is. Many thanks for watching.
いろんないよ。狡猾に行こう。呪いらしく、人間らしく。
It's all summed up in this one moment. The mystery behind him as a character, his soft voice and the malicious grin on his face. It becomes very clear that this is not like any other curse we've seen before. Almost every curse has something that personifies their personalities and ideals. Jogo's sense of superiority and hot temper is a clear result of him being the earth curse spirit, being a literal volcano and having fire as his power. He acts in ways that serve the group, but also is very entitled. Hanami, on the other hand, is down to earth and very gentle, being someone that cares about humans because they are part of nature, which he represents, but easily setting himself apart by his human-like appearance and the aura surrounding him. Mahito is revealed to be a curse that comes from humans themselves, from the fear and hate between themselves. In other words, he is the pure personification of the bad side of humans, the pure evil within us that is unrestricted by morality, empathy, or anything else. A pure curse with pure human attributes.
わかる？命に価値や重さなんてないんだよ。天地にとっての水のように、命もただ巡るだけだ。それは俺も君も同じ。無意味で無価値。だからこそ何をしてもいい。どう生きようと自由なんだ。
Mahito is an obvious nihilist. He believes that there is no value or importance in life. Through his understanding to souls and how they relate to the physical world, he comes to the conclusion that there is no heart. Not the literal body part, but the idea of having a heart to feel with, to love, connect, and empathize. And since there isn't a value in such life, you can live it the way you want. Everyone has the right to do so, and because life has no value, taking it is also okay. How he explains to Junpei that we are instinctual beings, both curses and humans are, and the emotions we feel are the norm. They are our desires and we should act according to that. So if Junpei hates and wants to kill someone, he should just do it, same as the way he just eats when he is hungry. It's purely instinct after all. Instinct which he later tells Hanami about when they were talking about fighting and the pleasure in fights. He convinces the very strict and honest Hanami to enjoy fights more, that it's their instinct to feel the pleasure from the adrenaline rush from the fight, which will make them stronger eventually. And of course he himself acts on it more than anyone else, but he acts on more than just instinct. His desire to hurt and use his power on the humans, who he hates yet can't leave at all because he is naturally tied to them. His immeasurable greed on humans' emotions and reasons, and the greed to grow stronger and learn more about himself. Mahito is not like most curses. even the ones he is mostly with. Compare the reaction of Jogo when Hanami died, and his reaction when Dagon died, to Mahito when he found out about Hanami's death. Even Dagon is so connected to them and felt angry when Hanami was exorcised. Yet, Mahito is clearly shown without any signs of caring. He only cares about one thing, and that's his desire. Although he is introduced as part of Jogo, Hanami, and Dagon's squad that is united and have one goal in mind, Mahito has less interest than the others. Even though he is the leader, his only real goal is to clash with his foil character, the person that contradicts him, his literal natural enemy and the protagonist of the story, Itadori Yuji, who is the clear opposite of Mahito, because he believes that there is value in life and reason behind it. Through their different approaches and the way they influenced Junpei, it becomes apparent how contrasting to each other and how different they are. But are they really that different? If Yuji and Mahito were two parts of the same whole person, like two halves of the brain, Yuji would be the sensible, reasonable half, and Mahito would be the one acting on pure emotion and instinct. Mahito and Yuji are both curse-human hybrids. They are both individuals that blur the line between humans and curses. Mahito is specifically a curse that was created from the human fear of one another, which makes him the most human of the curses, and the most adept to change and growth. Yuji is a normal kid, as far as we know, who swallowed a finger and his entire body became cursed energy. He is half curse and half human, in the regard that he is Sukuna and he is Yuji at the same time. Yuji's actions are the same as Mahito's in a way. Just look at it from the curse's perspective. Curses are supernatural beings that exist naturally in this world. They are a part of it, just like animals, trees, and humans. And like all things that exist, they have a right to. Who says that curses can be exterminated by humans? Isn't that the same logic and reasoning behind killing animals? Humans are aggressive towards nature, sea, earth, and humans themselves. Same way the curses are aggressive towards humans. And the attitude of Mahito when toying with and killing humans is no different than the way sorcerers exercise and kill curses. Yuji is not aware of this, because he is so drowned in his hero complex that he ignores everything else. He spends most of the time talking about life's value and proper death, but he doesn't fully understand it. And not once but twice was his understanding to reality shattered by the same individual. Mahito is always present to correct Yuji and challenge him. His greed against Yuji's lack of understanding, his malice against Yuji's morals, and their ability to grow, not just physically but also mentally, becoming stronger, adapting to what's around them, and fully understanding what they do. Yuji doesn't choose to not understand this fully. He is just so not aware that he doesn't. Contrasting this is Mahito, who is 100% confident in his understanding to it. Unlike Yuji, from day one, Mahito was convinced of his mentality. In the moment of truth where both characters clash their hands and their ideals, the truth becomes apparent to them, that none of them is right or wrong. Both of them have some sort of truth in their approaches. Mahito indeed is right about the instinct, but Yuji is also correct about the reason. None of them is absent in reality, and that leaves the question to what is the right thing? As far as the story goes, there isn't. Beautifully said in these lines by Yuji in chapter 132, towards the end of their fight. You are right, Mahito. I am you. I wanted to reject you to convince myself that you were wrong, but that doesn't matter now. I'm going to kill you. Even if you come back as another curse, I'll kill you. Change your name, change your form, I'll kill you again. I don't need to find meaning or reason. Maybe 100 years after my death, the reason behind my actions will become apparent. In the grand scheme of things, I'm probably nothing more than a cog, but I'll keep killing curses for as long as I can. That's my role in all of this. There is so much to discuss in this segment, but it's mostly Tadori related, so I'll leave that to his video. But we can see how Yuji became aware of all aspects of being that he and Mahito share, those opposite ideas, and through acknowledging the two, he finally merged them and something came out of them. These are opposite ideas, and Mahito and Yuji clearly look at the world with completely opposite perspectives. However, these perspectives don't contradict. They are complementary. The existence of a shadow doesn't mean the conscious mind is right. The existence of the conscious mind doesn't mean the shadow isn't there. In other words, light and shadow don't negate each other. Light cannot exist without shadow. Mahito is the acknowledged shadow of Yuji's actions, following him through the plot and punishing him for his ignorance. And he does that very well, actually too well, that he forced the latter to be aware of his flaws. But no matter how Mahito is right about some parts, he is still so wrong about his doings. And the reason Yuji was the one that came to understand both and not Mahito is that Yuji simply is a human and Mahito is a curse after all. And that is what sets them apart in the grand scheme of things. Akutami did a brilliant job in writing Mahito as a character, in the way he is Yuji's actual demon and rival instead of Sukuna. Mahito, the terrifying side of humanity we all have inside of us, brought to life purely through the concept of curses, is such a genius way to present themes of morality, humanity, and the idea of evil within. A very unique way to make a protagonist grow and find his role and purpose. Many thanks for watching. I love Kugisaki. Everyone does. If you ask any Jujutsu Kaisen fan about their thoughts on her, chances are very high that they will speak high of her. And it really isn't hard to understand why. She is expressive, funny, admirable, and she's the type of person you would like to know. But this is given extra weight and dimensions because of the type of story that Jujutsu Kaisen is, and the simple design of her character is ingeniously integrated with the rest of the story. Nobara is so important because her characterization operates in concrete contrast to a ton of elements in the narrative. In a world full of self-serving people with contradicting and complex takes on things, in a very complicated system that categorizes and oppresses certain individuals, Nobara is one of the few that just wants to live life the way she wants, while helping others if she can. And that is vital in multiple ways. Jojo Akutami is someone who incorporates narrative, tonal, and thematic balance. And that is true in regards to the cast of characters as well. This story is full of nuanced, subtle individuals with profound progression and complex characterization, but it is equally contrasted by beautiful simplicity that allows both sides of the coin to stand out as much as possible, and as a result, such a breadth of ideas and concepts are able to be explored. The complexity in the cast is extremely notable, but it is only as profound as it is because it's gorgeously balanced with the simplicity of characters like Todo, Miwa, Panda, and most simple of all, the stubborn independent girl from the countryside. Nobara is one of the closest things to a realistic person in this story. Jojo uses perspectivism and avoids moralizing to ensure that no one character has an archetypal label in his or her story, at least from a moral standpoint. But in a universe filled with tons of extraordinary people going on their own philosophies and doing a ton of good and bad things, where most people are tied by societal rules and family drama, Nobara finds herself to be an orthodox role model of sorts, one that grounds the story in passion and love. She brings this unique element of optimistic spirit, who is devoid of complicated search behind her actions and doesn't feel the necessity of justifying everything beyond what she thinks is right. The way that she is such a blunt personification of straightforwardness and confidence in comparison to her peers and her golden personality makes her one of the most relatable yet misunderstood characters in the story. But she is far more than your classical independent female trope, and this combined with the aforementioned spirit and simplicity make Nobara deceptively important and profound for what she represents throughout the story. The few chapters and episodes that she is introduced in can only be described as a subversion of expectations, with regards to her having described her only prevailing motive for becoming a sorcerer is that she will be able to live in Tokyo. She seems to be selfish, uninspired, and purposeless. She's not portrayed as a bad person at all, and her actions early on show her to be pretty decent. But there is not much to her character apart from that. Yet, when it comes to the exchange event, Momo is able to break through the hard outer shells, and we discover who this girl really is. In the past, Nobara had this older friend who she looks up to so much that when she left the village because of the way the people treated her, Nobara hated them for it, and the whole idea of leaving and going somewhere else, somewhere bigger, started to take roots. This is not just on the surface level, but thematically as well. This is Jeje's representation of breaking out of society's chains and expectations, and that's something that is profoundly communicated through Nobara as a character. Not only is she the exact opposite of what you expect from a shonen heroine, but she is extremely different, not only in the way she looks, not being over-sexualized and used as a love interest for one of the protagonists, etc., but in her philosophy, in the way she treats people. As Mary Not the Bad Guy pointed out in his video, her name Nobara, when broken down, means wild rose, which not only relates to her country girl status, but also in how roses are heavily related to the rest of her character. Like how different colors of roses all have meanings that matches with her hair color and personality. Given a fact about her that we know, she actively dyes her hair orange. It makes sense that her determination matches well with the orange rose's own meaning, as this color carries the meaning of enthusiasm and passion, which are two terms that describe Nobara amazingly, because she is passionate to live in a city so much that she is ready to risk her life for that, while carrying an enthusiasm while working as a sorcerer, spending her free time shopping, trying new food, and more. There is also the meaning behind the black rose, which is Nobara's natural hair color. The color black in roses signifies major change and the start of new things, which to Nobara that was Saori, who taught her that she can be both tough and beautiful at the same time, something that means a lot to her. When confronting Momo, Nobara responds to the argument and reasoning behind what women mean in the Jujutsu world and how they are treated with "keep that shit to yourself." Because like Gojo, she is incredibly driven by her own strength and her own values. She's a highly individualistic character. Jujutsu Kaisen is a manga that lets both selfish and selfless people exist without feeling the need to judge one as better than the others. Considering the people who Nobara connects with, Maki, Tadori, Saori, and Megumi, she is someone who likes those who are just like her, highly resistant to pain, whereas she dislikes those who show their pain, like Momo and Mai, and feel the need to lash out on others. In Nobara's world, People should be strong and self-confident like she is, and therefore they should not feel the need to lash out. In other words, she does not allow herself to be weak, and she does not accept others as well. Her philosophy is basically that she should be able to overcome everything in her life with her own self-love and her own personal strength, which is why she has no sympathy at all for the people who succumb to misery and misfortune, which makes her the exact opposite of Itadori. Nobara always thinks she is right and is convinced of this fact, even if it's just based entirely off of her personal opinions. Whereas Itadori is someone constantly grappling with how wrong he is and how little he knows. Itadori and Megumi are burdened with others' problems. Nobara lives mostly for herself. Nobara, when on the edge of death, was basically willing to throw her life away and die, the most miserable death possible if it meant taking down her enemy. She is so single-minded like that. She basically doesn't understand other people at all, especially the ones who do not share her mental fortitude. Finally, Nobara's compassion is unique because she seems very aware of her own emotions. She holds herself to a certain standard and wears her emotion on her sleeves, even unconsciously. She felt guilt and regret in the Cursed Womb arc, wanting to become stronger after seemingly losing Yuji. In Origin of Obedience, Yuji asks her how she felt about killing the two Cursed Womb brothers, because they were still part human, and she responds very seriously but extremely sincere. She makes it clear to Yuji that she believes that what they had to do was necessary, and that anyone who isn't in her shoes can tell her what is right or wrong. It is such a profound way to show a character's mentality after committing murder for the first time, albeit in self-defense. It begs the question of how far Nobara would go to defend a decision she made in the heat of a moment, and just where her guilt threshold stands. Nothing about Nobara is surface level or can be understood at first glance. Her values, morals, mentality, and philosophy has yet to be fully explored by Okutami in the time of this video. Nobara doesn't heal, her curses inflict pain on others. She fights mainly for herself and to be strong, but she cares about the well-being of those she likes. As a character, she has a unique worldview, and also one so utterly different from both of the boys that she might be the one who balances out their eventual conflicts. She is very down-to-earth in a sense and has no interest in ideals because she is constantly so frank about her own reality. From now on, this video will have major spoilers, so anime-only watchers should consider leaving now. I will wait for a few seconds before I continue. As much as I don't like to leave this video on a sad note, I have to talk about what happened in the manga. As we all know, Nobara's status is yet to be known. Whether she is dead or alive has yet to be confirmed. It might seem very obvious that she is more likely alive than dead because of the fact that it took so long to reveal. If she is dead, then there is no point holding it for this long. But there is also another truth to this, that Nobara's character arc essentially concluded. Everything she was established as and everything she stands for is somehow complete. And other characters that have concluded their arcs are Nanami, Jugo, Geto, and Hanami. And one thing that these characters share is that they all died. We already know that the author gets rid of any character that doesn't have more to add to the story. And I'm afraid that Nobara does fall into this category, because other than the potential of meeting Saori and possibly being the one that balances out the conflict between Yuji and Megumi, there isn't much more to her personal arc than just being there. Unlike Maki, for example, who still has the path to reaching her full potential like Toji, and the idea of her being the next head of the Zenin Clan. It is almost impossible that she might die anytime soon. You probably get the idea by now. There is hope in the fact that Nita's technique may come in clutch and saves her, but this story is cruel as we know. Nobara herself said that it would have been bad if she died alone, or that she is the only one that dies. Something that the author himself adds more weight to when he said that by the end of the story, out of the 4 main characters, either one of them will die or only one will stay alive. The possibility is very high that she might die, but who knows, maybe Nobara will pop out of a box in the few next chapters saying "Oh puppy" and surprising Yuji as a revenge for when he once assumably died and she didn't know. Only time will tell us. Many thanks for watching.
俺は不平等に人を助ける。
There is a confusing understanding that differs from human to human on the type of choices and actions they deem worthy of doing, based on situations and how they deal with other people. The morality of the individual is a key to determining what type of person he is and what sets of values he holds dear. It's the moral compass each human has that makes him the person he is. A moral compass is an internalized set of values and objectives that guides a person with regards to ethical behavior and decision making. And if that ethical behavior and decision making is about whether or not saving people and the idea of killing and judgment, the heavier is the weight on the person to distinguish between what he should and can go with. That is why it is often easier to fall into the 2 most common categories, either neglecting the whole morality thing and being cold and evil, or the choice of holding them very high and projecting the picture of being a hero that will not leave anyone alone and goes on with the idea of saving everyone. But if you find yourself in between, having the right mindset and in the positive direction, but with a certain amount of judgment to separate the worthy and the not worthy of saving, it becomes very complicated. In a world where people are split between those that were blessed or more like cursed with the powers they have and those that don't, a world that its normal is an unfair and cruel mess with a society that more or less adds more oil to the fire with its traditions and set of rules. A young boy is born with the luck of inheriting a rare and powerful ability that makes him very precious and valued by his clan. Fushiguro Megumi was sold by his father to the Zenin Clan, which he is from anyways, due to his potential of having a unique technique, something that his clan functions by, the idea of power and hierarchy decided by strength. Luckily, he was saved by his soon-to-become mentor Gojo, who disrupted the deal and made him miss on a whole different life in the toxic and harsh life in the Zenin household. Megumi is the perfect representation of the cog that is Jujutsu sorcerers. He is someone that's doing his job properly. He is kind at heart and doesn't like to see any good people suffer. And on the other hand, he isn't prepared to save everyone because they might go on and hurt others after that. This video is by no means a moral judgment, simply because I think no productive discussion could be had from personally judging right from wrong, but rather exploring the characters, the themes associated with them, and how they contribute to their respective stories tends to be much more useful, in my opinion. Megumi's caution of not saving everyone because they might end up hurting someone in the future is exactly what happens when he met Yuji, something that will soon become very complicated for the 2 of them, and that the story builds upon in order to distinguish between the right and wrong in such situations. The moment he asked Gojo to save Itadori was the moment that Megumi started to feel the necessity of watching over Yuji and the responsibility of anything he and Sukuna may cause, something that they both unknowingly argued over once, and in their words spoke their truth to each other. Little did they know, that what both of them is trying to prevent and are afraid of will soon start to happen. Fushiguro and Itadori share the same fixation on saving people. While Itadori wants to give a proper death or save as many people as he can from curses, Fushiguro rather listens to his own conscience, where he wants to give good people what they deserve. And this belief of his is rooted from the undeserving situation he feels is granted to his sister in this life. When the two clashed over this and settled their difference quickly out of respect for each other, this connected the two of them closer than other characters. Fushiguro is not cold-hearted, but actually quite an emotional and kind-hearted character. When he asked Gojo if they could save Itadori, it was based purely from his emotion of not wanting to see good people die. He also agreed to be Gojo's pupil as a kid and not go to the Zenin family because Gojo could ensure his sister's safety. When Itadori died, he felt the need to give the name tag to Tadachi's mom, something that Itadori would be doing, even though Fushiguro himself normally wouldn't do such a thing, as he didn't even want to save the people in that juvenile facility in the first place. He feels that a lot of people he thought to be good are given unfairness in life, like his sister who was cursed and fallen into a coma, and Itadori, who ate Sukuna's finger, then received a death penalty. His personal sense of justice drives him to help and save them, in his own brand of heroism stemmed from his ego of choosing who he will save and who he won't save. The idea of good people affects Fushiguro deeply, that out of respect for Itadori who had died, he does something that he usually wouldn't do. From now on, this video will contain heavy spoilers from the manga, so if you're not caught up with it, please proceed with caution. Possibly the biggest curse in Jujutsu Kaisen is bloodlines, something that plays a major role in the character arcs of multiple characters in the story. Megumi's rare case makes it look like he's free, but that soon changes when Megumi is the person who is demanded to become the new head of his clan, if Gojo happens to fall from power. Something that will serve the clan a lot by having the person with the biggest potential of strength to be their new leader. But Fushiguro, being the person we know him as, will without a doubt refuse it, because he already considers himself not a member from the clan and proudly replies with his mother's family name that his father once took when he left. But also out of respect for Maki, who aims to take the seat of the next head, something that will mean a lot for her and for the clan in general. There isn't a way that he might end up becoming the next head, because that would simply be the result of losing Gojo and making things more complicated for Maki's future. He already is someone that wants little to nothing to do with the clans, and is exactly what a subject of such ideals wouldn't be like. Unlike the most obvious character that is technically the opposite of Fushiguro, which is Norito Shikamo from the Kyoto branch, who not only is someone that is expected and aiming to be the head of his clan, he also sees his position as something very important, and he values rules and order more than anything else. Unlike Megumi, who is mostly an emotional character and doesn't believe he has any ties with the Zenin Clan. As long as he can keep doing what he believes is right, with the mindset of growth and getting stronger, he doesn't wish for more. But that exactly is where his biggest flaw lies. The thing that holds him back the most from getting stronger is his lack of selfishness, something that Gojo makes him understand by telling him that no matter what the situation is, a sorcerer always dies alone. In comparing himself, Fuji, and Megumi, Gojo makes Megumi realize that in order to reach the heights he aims towards, he needs to act more selfishly. As fundamentally, Fushiguro is someone compassionate. He focuses on cooperating and matching his level to people around him first, which actually hinders his growth of ability because his nature as a sorcerer is on the opposite side. To envision a stronger version of himself and to grow beyond what he thinks is even possible, that working together with people is ideal, but you need to think of yourself more if you want to grow. Surpass your limits by taking risks and acting like what you envision. This is something that we see often in Jujutsu Kaisen, the difference between those that seek to be on top and those that feel comfortable staying where they are, whether strong or not. Good examples of this are Nanami, who retreats when he feels like this is not a situation that he can surely solve alone. He didn't try to defeat Mahito when he found out that it will be hard due to his inability to hurt his soul. From the two options of retreating or to keep fighting until Mahito is weakened and runs out of cursed energy, he chose the former without even trying to do something he isn't 100% capable of. Maybe that's the reason Nanami stayed at the level of a normal grade 1 sorcerer and didn't reach the level of performing a domain expansion. He didn't push himself beyond his capabilities. The other example being Jogo, who is extremely powerful. He can take on any sorcerer other than Gojo and maybe the rest of special grades with ease. But he felt like he is already strong enough and didn't seek to surpass that, something that Sukuna tells him. It's that difference of hunger that makes the gap between the strong and the strongest, and Megumi suffers from that. But Megumi's lack of desire to greedily grow stronger is not just because of that, it's mainly because he is aware of the ace up his sleeve that he can use whenever he is desperate to take down the enemy with him. It's that reliance he has on that specific summoning that he doesn't seek to make the most use out of his technique, and the readiness to throw away his life at any moment. Something that even Nanami takes note of in their encounter with Dagon, but Fushiguro, unlike before, responds by saying that he isn't going to throw away his life meaninglessly. But not too long after, he does exactly that. When desperately unable to fight against Haruta, he summons Mahoraga, finally, and almost dies if it wasn't for Sukuna saving him. Mahoraga is a huge obstacle and catalyst for Megumi, both mentally, because if he stops relying on it, he will make the most use out of his technique, but in a strength level way too, because when Megumi finally tames him, he will reach a height no one before him ever did, and paves the way for him to claim the title of the strongest. Now that Gojo is gone, Megumi has a lot of things he has to deal with. More than to stabilize Tokyo back, it is the responsibility that he always feels over keeping Yuji as Sukuna's vessel alive that probably will demand a lot out of Megumi. In addition to losing Gojo and the waking of Tsumiki as one of Brain's victims, the possible loss of Nobara and having to deal with someone wanting to kill him for a position, Megumi needs all the strength he can muster, literally and figuratively, to be able to survive the coming of near future, even though ironically he is one that is readily dying anytime. Megumi has 3 things he needs to accomplish by the end of the story. One is coming to a mutual understanding of the morality he has and the way it differs from his foil Yuji. Second, being able to tame Mahoraga, making him possibly the strongest character in the world by the time he makes the most out of his ability. The same ability that rivaled the 6 Eyes and the Limitless even without Mahoraga. Megumi was set to become the strongest from the very start. And the final one, being able to accept himself and break the barrier of the lack of confidence that's holding him back from achieving what he aims for. Megumi doesn't have to go against what he believes in, but he also doesn't have to let it define who he is and stay the same. He just needs to be himself, doing what he believes is right in a healthy merger of control and desire. It has taken some time for him to come to learn this due to living in such a rare situation in a society that reductively categorized. But he is slowly learning, and in a setting that makes it so difficult and so rare for people to be exactly who they want to be outside of set roles, this is a remarkable thing. Someone who continuously tries to find a place for himself in a world that already has a place for him, which he doesn't want to be in. And as someone who left it behind, but is still hunted by such rules and morals, he is the ideal character to take us through this world that would seem to have a lot of expectations for someone in his specific situation and his specific mentality. He is the ideal sorcerer. He is our guide into the injustices, intricacies, and layers of Jujutsu Kaisen. And through understanding his shadow, he aims to transcend above it all to find what most of us are really looking for when it comes right down to it: the understanding of oneself. Even though it is very much still a work in progress, Megumi uses his judgment for good. He shaped it and something balanced came out of it. So he is able to see the value in confronting himself and evolving from within. He is constantly stumbling, unsure, and questioning his morals and place in the world in order to find an ideal that he is comfortable with going with. But slowly and surely he is learning about who he is, how he wants to live, what he wants to do, how he wants to do it, and the type of person and sorcerer he aspires to be. And he will continue to struggle in this difficult world to find a suitable mindset, because now, as opposed to earlier in the story, deep down he knows his weak points and more or less also knows how to deal with each and every one of them and grow beyond that. Many thanks for watching. As goofy and silly as he is most of the time, Satoru Gojo is still one of the most complex and the best written characters in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. His character may be very straightforward and simple at first, as he was established as the easygoing, overpowered stereotype, but he's a very deep-layered person who is very conflicted and misunderstood, both in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen and from us the readers, and what I believe to be a complexity of being on top, and how it affected him and made him the person we know him as. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe, and if you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button and comment down below what are your thoughts on the matter. In this video I'll be going over Satoru Gojo as a character in an attempt to understand him. This video is going to be full of spoilers from the manga, so if you're not caught up with the latest chapters, you better leave now. And with that aside, let's dive into the mind of the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer alive, the pride and prodigy of the Gojo clan, and the most important character in all of the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, Satoru Gojo. Starting off with his character and personality, he is that of the mentality of I can, therefore I will. Gojo is exactly what you can expect from being at the summit of strength. He is feared by his enemies and cherished by his allies. He will do whatever he likes because simply he can. He isn't someone that can simply be tied by rules and is willing to break them anytime he sees something worth breaking them for. That is why he is often hated and not respected by others, and has a lot of bad relationships and problems with the higher ups and people from the Jujutsu society. But why is that he is this way, and what possibly made him act this way? Let's take a look at his history. There is 3 major timelines that I believe are the foundation of Gojo as the person he is. First, his childhood. Even though there is only a few scenes and mentions of Gojo as a kid, that is efficient to assume the way he lived and the environment he was in as a kid. Because of the Jujutsu world as it is, and the importance of the bloodlines between the clans, and Gojo, who inherited not only one, but 2 of the rarest abilities, something that hasn't happened in 100 years, speaks volumes of his worth and potential. He was terrifying in the few scenes we saw him in, from him realizing that Toji was standing behind him, something that no one ever did or will do before and after that moment, and the fear he put into old and experienced curse users by just a stare from a distance. It is not a surprise that Gojo will be as arrogant and confident as he grew up with this level of strength from the moment he was born, and cherished by his surroundings. He was treated like a treasure from the moment he came into this world. Not just that, but also described as a phenomena that altered the balance and is treated like a historic event of itself. This continues in his teenage years as a Jujutsu Tech student. The cocky attitude and the superiority can be seen in him clearly as a result from his childhood life. Now, being a special great sorcerer and probably never struggling in his life before, we can see how he is someone who is willing to break any rule and go against the system in the way he talks, and he mentions that protecting the weak is such a pain. And we can see the difference in his thoughts about the subject with his friend and classmate Geto. They agreed to protect Riko and came to the conclusion that her life shouldn't be thrown away just like that. Everything was going well until the calamity arrived. Toji makes his appearance and brutally destroys Gojo, kills Riko and leaves Geto at death's door, completely shattering everything the two teenagers believed in and were planning on doing, which made Geto start to question his morals and role, which will also in return affect Gojo, because he lost his one and only rival. Toji was the reason Gojo became the strongest. He made him reach a level of strength like none before, and presented the first ever obstacle in his life. Gojo in the second fight was numb and lost his mind because of the shock, as Toji describes him as being high. He didn't fight for Riko or anything else. He simply was enjoying the moment as greedily as he could, experiencing this new level of strength and power and might. At the end of that arc, Gojo is more hateful towards the Jujutsu elders and society, and killing them is clearly an option for him now. This then becomes worse for him as he and Geto start to be separated by the gap of strength Gojo gained. Events lead to Geto becoming a curse user and leaving Jujutsu Tech. Gojo encounters him and they have a talk. Then one of my favorite phrases in all of the manga takes place. Are you the strongest because you are Satoru Gojo? Or are you Satoru Gojo because you are the strongest? This means that being the strongest is a characteristic and should belong to someone. Being the strongest because you are who you are implies that strength is just a part of you, not you yourself. And the opposite is being you yourself just because you are the strongest implies the lack of identity and personality, meaning that Gojo is Gojo just because he is the strongest, and that there is nothing more to him as a person than this title. If it was to be taken away from him, will he stay the same? Does he have any qualities other than strength? These words struck Gojo very deep, and he couldn't kill Geto at the moment, because he simply would have proved him right if he did. Gojo goes on his own way and decides to take the route of teaching and making allies that will change the system and not him alone. But something even heartbreaking is that deep down, he probably just wants someone to be on the same level as him, or to even take the title of the strongest from him, because he is sick of it. But again, he can't abandon it because he values it too much. Gojo goes on to become the character we know him as. From there, he takes in Fushiguro as a kid, stands against the execution of Yuji and Yuta, partly because he wants to avoid the repetition of what happened to Riko, with the mindset that young people shouldn't be robbed their lives, and also because he wants someone to reach him and understand him. Gojo is alone. We see him often confidently mentioning how these prodigies will surpass him and take his place and so on. He does want that to happen for the greater good and himself, but he also doesn't want it to happen, because if it did, will he stay the same? He only knows being at the top. Will it be good if that's taken away from him? This is the complexity he has from being at the top of the world he is in. Now that we've taken a look at his history, we can understand why Gojo is the way he is to some extent. He always is superior no matter what. He likes it, but as he is afraid of losing it, he often shows signs of looking forward to be replaced. As I previously mentioned, there is not a lot of canonical information on his childhood, besides few bits and pieces here and there. His clan in the Jujutsu world always saw him as a weapon, and he definitely didn't live a normal life. Perhaps after interacting with Riko and forming a bond with her, that Gojo came to the realization that youth shouldn't be robbed from their lives, something he never had. His lack of normalcy in his own childhood and upbringing, the dehumanization of innocent young people because fate wasn't on their side, and being treated like assets and objects like he did, and something we see clearly in the Zenin Clan. This prompted his decisions to help them, and Geto was a big catalyst for him. Gojo's arrogance and behavior was a result of his strength. After Riko was killed, he started training and finally reached his true potential. Followed by Geto's betrayal, Gojo was beyond hurt. He felt lonely and insecure and came to the conclusion that he will form strong allies and took on that mentality. Gojo's attitude clearly speaks volumes of his arrogance and overconfidence that comes from his status and the way he lived his life. He is someone who will ridicule you if you are weaker than him, shows no respect to you as an enemy, and break rules on his own will. The truth is that this is what a bad personality is like. He is nothing like a hero or a good person, but rather a battle maniac who loses himself in fights and only seeks confirming his identity as the strongest, an identity that he himself doesn't know the essence of, whether he is himself because of a title or is the title his own. While he is cool and someone we love, there is a truth to this that is very hard to swallow, a truth that is very painful for us the audience and Gojo as a character. The fact that Satoru Gojo, after all of this, is actually a failure. He messes up most of the time and is careless. This was first seen when he fought Jogo. He was so busy showing off and teaching Yuji that he let his guard down and let him escape, without taking a single information from him, and let him live. Jogo then was not only responsible for killing Naobito Zenin, injuring Nanami badly which led to his death, left Maki on death's door, killed multiple civilians but also made Itadori consume 10 fingers, resulting in Sukuna killing thousands of people. If Gojo had actually exorcised him, or at least didn't let Jogo escape, none of this would have happened. He failed to protect Riko, but also almost died himself if it wasn't for luck. Was not able to save his best friend and rival. He wasn't able to exorcise Hanami, but rather fell into the trap and their mission succeeded. And in Shibuya he didn't accomplish a single thing at all, but perfectly fell into the plan. Now that he is sealed, he still expresses his hope and trust in his students. Same students who are mostly injured and probably dead. Now even one of them is going after the other to kill him. Gojo failed all of the missions and battles we see him in, and his bigger goal and purpose to raise a proper generation is also partially failing. What is the point of Gojo existing then, if he is useless and not getting a single thing right? Something I found very weird and interesting is how the author never shows us Gojo's emotional side or thought process clearly. Think about it, we have never seen Gojo in an emotional state, other than a few moments of anger and concern here and there, mostly in moments of battle. But never once have we seen him being expressive when thinking about something or having a proper dialogue with someone, something like Fushiguro does all the time. We even saw Geto's point of view and the way he thinks leading to his change. But Gojo is always either thinking about the battle tactically or has small surface level conversations with people around him, which adds a layer of mystery to his ideology and morals. What is the point of view of the strongest person about the things he goes through and the things he does? What are his feelings? This leads me to think that the author is saving that for later parts of the story, where he will start to dive deep even more into him. Gojo is very important in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, that even literally his absence causes chaos, and that is something we can see now after the events of Shibuya. But he is very flawed. He is someone that you can expect to be perfect, but he is far from that. What will be his reaction when he sees his failures and comes to the realization that he is not who he thinks is? His reaction to the state that Japan is in, and the state of his partners and students, the loss of so many allies and comrades, that will definitely change something in him, and by something I mean his state of mind. We might get the insane crazy version of him that we often see in fights come out more. He is now exiled from the Jujutsu world. His teacher and his students are meant to be executed, and Japan is in chaos, mostly because of his absence and partly because of him, as he is the person who is responsible for Sukuna's actions, and his previously mentioned failures helped in his capture, and all of the things that happen in between. As much as it hurts me, I personally believe Gojo will turn insane and will somehow become an antagonist in the story. I will be making a detailed video about why I think that way. I really hate to see it because Gojo is a character that I admired for years now since the start of the manga, but that is all I can envision for his future, for now at least. So make sure to subscribe to not miss that video when it comes out. Following my Gojo analysis video that I made a couple of weeks ago, this video serves as basically the second part of the analysis, but with more focus on the possible theory mentioned in the former, about Gojo becoming a villain in the future of the story. Just like the first video, this one will be focused on the story as a whole, including the manga, so spoiler alert for those that don't wish to be spoiled. The world of Jujutsu Kaisen is one full of people fixated on breaking through the chains, bonds and miseries that the world has placed upon them. Whether you look at the tragic position that the young Itadori found himself in early on in the story, and his pursuit to live a proper life and making the most out of it, the fate of Junpei and Riko, the same goal but different approaches of Brain and Yuki to rid the world of the curse of curses, or even Geto's attempt at separating the people and creating a world where only sorcerers exist. Some of these characters are overcome with an ambition that seems to supersede what is possible, and all of them are humans that seek the best of this world, or at least for themselves. While there is multiple people that don't seem to be aiming to do anything impossible or change anything, there is also those that can't help but change because of what's going on around them. In order to save lives, you have to value them, and Gojo Satoru to some extent doesn't, as he once said that it's a pain looking out for the weak. In Jujutsu Kaisen, the sorcerers are meant to be saviors. They are supposed to protect those that can't protect themselves from the supernatural threat that is curses. But with so much injustice, hypocrisy, and cunning in its society, the humans in Jujutsu Kaisen can be more dangerous and cruel than the curses themselves. Gojo, the man at the summit of power in such world, a man who went through his fair amount of hardships and struggles, suffers from not just insecurities and clearly has what some might call a god complex, but is hated and plotted against by those on top due to personal problems and hierarchy issues. It only makes sense that he will fight back. So far in the story, we saw him not once, but 3 times threatening and showing how he can easily direct his wrath towards them. In the prequel, when they were aiming to execute Yuta, after Yuji's death, which was caused by them, and when he and his best friend took the decision to face them if Riko was to refuse becoming the vessel. Now that Gojo is sealed away for some time, they made some moves that were impossible when he was still around. Ordering the execution of Yuji after Sukuna's actions, shamelessly blaming Gojo and Yaga for the events of Shibuya, connecting them to Geto and framing them as culprits, ordering the execution of Principal Yaga and threatening everyone that dares to remove the seal and freeing Gojo. It's basically them saying, this is an opportunity we will make the most use out of, in solidifying our control and power. But the man who was holding himself back because of way less important reasons will definitely come back at them. There is no doubt that Gojo will come after the higher-ups once he is released, and something we all can definitely be sure of is that Japan won't be stabilized at the time, that even possibly the chaos that's all over the place right now won't even match up to what the world will look like in the near future by the time Gojo gets out. In a normal world where Gojo already shows signs of pleasure improving his power and enjoying belittling and disrespecting others, everyone to him is below him. Compare these two panels of Gojo and Sukuna from their fights against Jogo. Sukuna played around with him because he was much superior and was dominating, but at least before killing him he praised him, telling him that he is strong and should be proud of that. Sukuna did what he usually does, but at least in Jogo's final moments, he made him proud and he met the world for Jogo. On the other hand, Gojo just casually tells him he's weak, using their fight as a lesson for Itadori and mocking him throughout it. He cares only about proving that he is the strongest in a level way beyond anyone else. His overconfidence makes him believe he can even defeat Sukuna with ease. He even called himself the only one honored throughout heaven and earth, unlike Sukuna who is described like that. Gojo's mental issues I went over in the first video are clear and present. His sanity is questionable every time he fights. He shows off a creepy lust for murder and proving his superiority. But the question remains, does he value the human lives that he is supposed to protect? The discussion between him and Geto, where he broaches the subject of Amanai's merger being called off if she herself isn't willing to go along with it. This was before even meeting Amanai. Later, the moment on the beach, where he picks up on Amanai's reluctance to go back and persuades Geto to postpone their return. These are indications that, in contrast to his blaze and flippant attitude on the surface, he is in fact capable of empathy and compassion deep down in certain emotions. In his encounter with Toji, he says he is not angry or vengeful on behalf of Amanai, but there is something to be said about that, how he is self-aware enough to acknowledge this inability in the first place. The meaningless death of an innocent girl, followed by his fallout with Geto, led him to the realization that it's apparently not enough to be strong. He can only save those that are prepared to be saved. This is a stark contrast to the "throughout heaven and earth I alone am the honored one" line, which was spoken in a moment of euphoria when he had unlocked a new technique and was drunk on power. Following those experiences and losses in his past, he resolves to transform Jujutsu World from inside out, armed with the aforementioned realization that his strength alone isn't enough. He sets out to raise allies of the next generation while carrying his conviction that kids should be allowed to freely live their youth. He goes out of his way for Yuta and Yuji and pulls strings to postpone their executions, giving them both a chance and enough time to live a proper life and enjoy their lives the best they can. Those actions speak louder than any grief or tears he might have shed over Amanai's death. So he isn't exactly not sad over her death, or as some may interpret that, he didn't feel emotions because of his lack of expression. He does value life, but whose life does he value? Is it the same ideology that Geto had, that non-sorcerers are not worthy of living? Or is it something else that the author still hasn't highlighted yet? Speaking of the "throughout heaven and earth I alone am the honored one," I would like to bring your attention to something called tarot cards, which are a set of cards used in tarot games and fortune-telling. We've seen them once in anime before, through Jojo. As we all know, Jujutsu Kaisen draws a lot of symbolism from Buddhism and spirituality. There is this specific card that I found to be interesting and maybe related to Gojo. It's the Magician card. The Magician card is a man with an infinity halo above his head, something that we saw in the cover of chapter 89, featuring Gojo with the same infinity halo above his head. Without getting in depth, the card symbolizes power, skill, and creation. It means infinite potential of creation and going higher, something that we can clearly see in Gojo's power and type of personality. Many scenes show him standing on top, from the scene in the first opening, the moment he entered the battle in the exchange arc, and in Shibuya when he was analyzing the situation. But here is where it becomes more interesting. There is something called the reverse magician, which represents greed, narcissism, lack of mental clarity, and cunningness. It is the opposite of the magician, both in effect and looks. If we take a look at Gojo's fight with Toji, we can clearly notice how the panels sometimes change from having Gojo straight to having him reversed upside down. That fight was a critical moment in Gojo's life. He was never the same after that, not physically nor mentally. I would like to look at it as if Gojo was on the brink of change, but he remained stable and solidified his position on top. But sooner or later, he will switch to the reverse magician, to the reverse Gojo, going from someone that a lot of people look up to and is very important, to an outcast and possibly someone completely misunderstood. Gojo going against the higher-ups doesn't necessarily make him a villain in the story, because they themselves are villains to some extent, but it's more about the approaches. If Gojo transforms into a maniac and loses every intention to saving lives and understanding, their values will put him against Yuji, and that might become the conflict between the two. I would also like to mention the time he brought back a fight between a Limitless user and a Ten Shadows user when he was talking to Megumi, and hinting at how he can reach his level and defeat him, which can be considered foreshadowing to a possible fight between the two in the future. Imagine how terrifying will Gojo be as an antagonist, seeing his vicious and scary actions, but directed towards Yuji, Yuta, and Megumi and the rest of his students. Jujutsu Kaisen has always been a mess. It never really was about just sorcerers against curses. And it definitely is getting even more complicated because of how many sides we have now. The brain's shady objective, Yuki's goal, the curse's desire, the higher-ups, the drama between the clans, Sukuna's mysterious plan, and possibly the addition of Gojo as a villain and opposing the heroes of the story that I personally believe will also create their own group, orchestrated by Yuta and Yuji. There is only more to see and discover about the future of this story. That was all I have for this theory, other than a few things here and there. The thought of taking on the strongest human alive is something that would only occur to the ignorant and foolish, who have no idea about who they are talking about. Because in a world where a 1,000-year-old mastermind with all the knowledge and wisdom of such world does not even think about attempting it and resorts to sealing such power away, to be able to make any sort of move, this says a lot about the potency of one single human, the one who is considered a pillar of balance. Satoru Gojo, a character I talked about here twice already, more than a year ago. Even though he has not appeared in that period, it is only a matter of time before he comes out, and a lot has changed since then. His friends, mentors, and students, dead, targeted, and forced to change in a collapsing world because of his absence, present in a realm where time is distorted around him, making him experience it at a crazy rate. How many years has it been for Gojo, fighting off spirits endlessly, and as one would assume forced to evolve and gain much more power than he already had? Kenjaku is easily the smartest character in all of Jujutsu Kaisen, And seeing how much planning and preparation he had over the last decades, it is crazy how much he has in store that we haven't seen yet. But even he had to get fate involved in this just to be able to take Gojo out of the picture. Gojo is very strong, but not without weaknesses. With enough knowledge about him, he can be cornered and suddenly he is vulnerable, something the author showed us time and time again that is almost impossible, with an ability that makes it even impossible to touch him. But the flaws still exist in his abilities, Toji Zenin being the first to break through that barrier with a cursed tool, Miguel being the second who challenges that ability with another tool. Hanami and Jogo were able to use domain amplification to neutralize his limitless curse technique, using people and forcing him to hold back, limiting his output as well, and so much more that shows how vulnerable his abilities are. And slowly the limitless and impossible is now limited and possible, which brings us to the main theory of this video. In the Star Plasma Vessel, Gojo gains the reverse curse technique, which grants him a lot of new feats, one of which being the ability to automate his limitless. He essentially upgraded his limitless and made it so that he doesn't have to manually block whatever is coming at him. So whether from a blind spot or directly, Gojo's limitless automatically blocks all threats coming at him, with a specific order of comparing the speed, size and shape and responding accordingly. However, he mentions that he still needs to reach a level where it can also block even poisonous things, but he still struggles with that. Even though this was more than 10 years ago, we haven't seen any single sign of him gaining that ability. And if there is one thing that I am sure of, that would be that Gege Akutami does not write anything for no reason. Time and time again, crazy amounts of foreshadowing, symbolism, and details has led to one thing or another. And something as big as this would not be there just for granted. So, taking that into account, this is Sarin, a military design GB, and it is a nerve agent that is one of the most toxic of the known chemical warfare agents. It is generally odorless and tasteless. Exposure to Sarin can cause death in minutes. When Mai shot Kenjaku with a sniper rifle, he praised the idea of using modern weapons against Jujutsu sorcerers, calling it a brilliant idea and that he agrees, like it was something he would do, and Sarin being a military chemical warfare falls into that category. The molecular structure shown in the panel here resembles that of Sarin. Now, this can all be assumptions if it wasn't for the Tokyo subway Sarin attack in 1995. Not only was it in Tokyo, but it was in a subway station, which reminds me of another incident that happened to happen in a subway station in Jujutsu Kaisen. The plan to steal Gojo himself, the Shibuya incident. Is this some next level foreshadowing that we are witnessing, or is this all coincidence? Speaking of coincidences, this Sarin attack happened in March 20th, which also happens to be Itadori Yuji's birthday. Now, that might be just a coincidence, but Itadori happens to be the person with a cursed spirit inside of him called the King of Curses and the King of Deadly Poisons. Sukuna being the King of Deadly Poisons, granting Itadori immunity to all types of poison, and additionally we still don't know much about his curse techniques. He used slashing and cutting, even fire arrows to this point, but we still know so little about his abilities. And the title of King of Deadly Poisons hints at having some sort of toxic and lethal attack. Sukuna vs Gojo, a fight that will inevitably happen, with Sukuna having some sort of poisonous weapon and Gojo having a weakness to poison, or to make matters more interesting, having Kenjaku be the one to plan on using poison against Gojo, because not only are there hints at that, but the unpredictability factor he has. Also, poison cannot be healed by reverse cursed energy as well, because as we saw not only once with Uraume healing their hand against Choso, yet still suffered damage because of the poison. But also in the recent Koshimo vs Hakari fight, where Hakari was poisoned despite having unlimited cursed energy and endless regeneration through reverse curse technique. Gege showing his knowledge about poisons and a deep understanding to chemistry through the usage of chlorine gas, while emphasizing that poison usage is one of the ways to take out reverse curse technique users, aside from taking their brain out with a single hit. What if Gojo reaches a whole new level because he has experienced ages in the prison realm and was forced to evolve, and Kenjaku taking over Tengen and also evolving himself, making for a climactic and apocalyptic end for Jujutsu Kaisen? Credits to this comment for that idea. Gojo himself said that the world of Jujutsu is changing and evolving way beyond special grade, so it makes sense that some sort of battle between beings that transcended what they originally are makes sense, tying to the themes of Buddhism and transcendence that Geto, Tengen and Gojo all represent. In the previous Gojo video, I talked about tarot cards, and the specific one I focused on was the Magician card. And the simplest way to think about the Magician is that it deals with power, skill, concentration, manifestation, and resourcefulness. All things that can be seen in Gojo's character and abilities. But a huge visual hint that ties both of them is the infinity halo above the head of the magician, which was also seen above Gojo's head in a chapter's cover. But the more interesting thing is that there is another card called Reverse Magician, or Magician in Reverse, which is the opposite of the upright magician. It means greed, wasted potential, avarice, deception, and confusion. In that video, I went over how Gojo in his fight against Toji was seen multiple times in an upside down position throughout the fight until he finished fighting while still being upright. Huge visual metaphors and symbolism to a lot of things, like him losing his mind and going insane, gaining an ability called reverse cursed energy, and much more that ties to him representing the magician and the reverse side of the magician. So I went a little bit in depth in the tarot card things once more to see what I can find. And I came across a card called Death, which means creation, destruction, transformation, and spiritual transformation. It also has a reverse variant, but what's more interesting is that it works as a combo with the Magician card, and also the Magician card with the Devil card, aka Gojo turning evil possibly. To be honest, I don't really understand these tarot card things myself, and whether or not Gege intentionally used them as inspiration, but the amount of visual and thematic symbols it shares with Jujutsu Kaisen, and specifically Gojo as a character, is something I can't just ignore. So is Gojo going to die? Who is gonna do it? Kenjaku, Sukuna, or perhaps our protagonists themselves? Is he going to lose his right eye? What's with all the separation and highlights it gets? It's like the author intentionally hints at something to do with it in the future. Perhaps this chapter cover can say something about it. Sukuna holding a skull with a light trail coming from its right eye, which we've seen already. But the scar on the forehead of the skull, which is reminiscent of the injury that Gojo received against Toji when he stabbed him in the head. Overall, this manga is so rich of amazing details that I am 100% sure I haven't come close to finding and understanding them all. So in the end, Gojo's death is not gonna be something small because of how powerful, feared and important he is in Jujutsu Kaisen, but more importantly, because of how good of a character he is. The thematic side and the history of his character is something we already discussed in previous videos, so for the sake of not making this video any longer, let's end it here for now. Tell me down below any thoughts, theories, details, or any findings you found yourself. Have a great rest of the day and many thanks for watching.